Greetings, my name is Zero and this is episode 2 of Stitching Sanity, which is a little knitting and sometimes crochet podcast thingy where I just like to talk about my projects. I am a knitter and sometimes crocheter from Northern Virginia. I say sometimes crocheter because I've actually been crocheting longer than I've been knitting, but I don't crochet that often anymore because I have a lot of wrist problems and crocheting kind of exacerbates that, so I primarily knit. Anyway, this is where I talk about my mostly knitting projects. It has been about 2 weeks since I last uploaded. The reason I haven't really posted anywhere much in the past 2 weeks is because I've been going through occupational therapy throughout the past month, and typically the last few weeks of occupational therapy or physical therapy are just the tail end of that. By the time we get to that point, I'm just drained. I'm going to the hospital 2 to 4 times a week for appointments, on top of other appointments that I have that aren't physical or occupational therapy, and then just personal, anyway, I've been drained. So I don't know if this will be an every other week type of thing or an every week type of thing. Maybe it will depend on what my schedule is like. I don't know. But even though I haven't been posting, I've still been knitting. I have finished 2 projects in the past 2 weeks. Hello, editing Zero here. I've actually finished 3 projects within the past 2 weeks. That third project being the hat that I knit for my nail tech, Kevin. I do not have that with me because I gave it to my nail tech when he did my nails, so I forgot to include it. I will put in a picture now of Kevin's hat so y'all can see Kevin's hat. But I did knit Kevin a hat. It's a 1x1 self-drafted beanie. I'm also currently working on 2 projects and I plan to start 3 hopefully within the next week. So I'm going to talk about my finished objects first. I'm wearing one of them, but I'll talk about the other thing I'm wearing that's not a finished object first so we can go into what I'm wearing, finished objects, yata-ta-ta-ta. Anyway, I'm wearing a hat. I knit this hat. I showed it last episode as a finished object. It is just a self-drafted 1x1 rib beanie. I found somewhat recently that it is a lot easier for me to self-draft a beanie that fits than it is for me to follow a pattern, because I know my gauge well enough to be able to go, yeah, 100 stitches with that yarn and this needle size will work, as opposed to me not willing to gauge swatch for something as small as a hat, so the gauge is always, anyway. I've been wearing this hat a lot. It is knit out of the Fiberseed Sprout Dk in the Pooky Forest colorway. I'll take it off for a second so you can see the colors. It is a Halloween colorway that I got at the Shenandoah Valley Fiber Festival in 2023. It is the first and only time I've ever been to a fiber festival. I would like to go sometime I would like to go this year. I didn't go last year because we were in the process of moving and other things were happening, but I would like to go next year. And then the other thing I am wearing, which is a finished object, is the Varpu by Jonna Helin. I shared this as a plan for something that I wanted to start after I finished another project last episode. I started that. I started this project before I finished that last project. So I just really wanted to start this. I was having a time, things were overwhelming and I just wanted a new project. And I am so happy that I just started this project and I knit it up. It took me about a week of maybe 45 minutes to an hour a day of work. I knit it out of Knitpicks Wonderfluff. It is an mostly alpaca yarn, I think, but it is a very lightweight yarn, especially for a bulky weight. I just used black. Feel like it's, telling y'all colorway names when I'm just knitting with black yarn. You can kind of figure most of the time. But anyway, I did modify this pattern to be knit with a v-neck. I also talked about that last episode. I didn't know if I was going to do it. I did it, and I really love it. I did follow the instructions from another project page. For the most part, I kind of read those instructions and got an idea of what I need to do. So instead of increasing a certain amount of stitches and then casting on in the center for the crew neck, I just increased until I have half of what I need, started on the other side, increased until I got half of what I need, and I joined them together. And I got a V-neck. I also added an I-cord. Can't really see it that well, but there's an I-cord there, which helped to pull in the neck a little bit and help make it a little bit more finished looking. But I really like how this modification turned out. It goes well with the necklaces that I wear. I have a small collection of what I like to call my funky jewelry.
Just trying to do like funky jewelry.
The one I'm wearing right now is a coffin nail from the 1800s. And when I wore this sweater earlier, I should probably mention, today is February 1st. When I wore this sweater for my last day of occupational therapy, I wore 2 necklaces with it. One that has uranium glass and the other that has rattlesnake bones and an amethyst. But it goes well with my necklaces. Sometimes with V-necks, if they go too low, it kind of sits awkwardly. But it works well. I will probably be wearing this a lot, especially now that I've recently finished this, mostly to test it out. I really like how it fits. I really like wearing it, but I use forearm crutches, and I have a feeling that this yarn is not going to be very durable. So I need to see how that would work out with forearm crutches, because a lot of my sweaters that I have that I wear a lot out of the house, and thus I wear when I use my forearm crutches, tend to pill really bad in the forearms because there is the contact and friction of my forearm crutch. So my shoulder just popped. But anyway, it's the Varpu by Jonna Helin. I really love this sweater, and I think I need another one in dark green. Maybe, we'll see. I have other sweater quantities that I need to knit up first before I go around buying others. So it will probably be fall of this year before I do that, but I want to do that eventually. Anyway, I really like this sweater. It's really soft. It almost feels like I am petting my cat. I've been saying for a while that I want to knit a sweater out of my cat. You know, just when you pet a really soft cat and you think, wow, if I had a sweater out of this, that would be great. This is a sweater it's not a sweater out of a cat, but it feels like it. It's soft. It reminds me of Pearl. My second finished object is another sweater. It is the Single Malt by Maxim. The Single Malt by Maxim Sear. I nearly said Maxim Sweater. Whatever. Single Malt by Maxim Sear. It is knit in a worsted weight yarn. I used Knitpicks Wool of the Andes Superwash in the Indigo Heather colorway, and I knit a size 3. I also knit a size 3 with my Varpu. I tend to knit size 3 for sweater patterns a lot. So it's usually either a size 3 or sometimes even a size 2, but it's usually around that area. But anyway, this is my Single Malt by Maxim Maxim Sear. I just finished it like 30 minutes ago. I just bound off, I think it was this sleeve that I just bound off. I don't know. But I just bound off my second sleeve. This hasn't been blocked yet. I will probably show this once it's been blocked. There is fiber by my nose. Anyway, I will probably show this once it has been blocked because it will block out generously. This sweater is knit in a kind of broken moss stitch, I believe, or broken seed stitch. I don't know. It is a knit purl texture. So knit purl textures tend to block out decently. And then the raglan detail has a purl stitch running through it, and that is also on the underside of the sleeves. So given those factors and the fact that this is a superwash yarn, it will block out quite well. I did mention that this is a superwash yarn. It is Knitpicks Wool of the Andes Superwash, and this is my first time using the superwash version of Wool of the Andes. I usually buy the non-superwash version because it's usually cheaper. However, during Knitpicks' $2, $4, $6 yarn sale that they had, I think it was in the fall, It was after we moved into this house, so I'm thinking sometime October, November-ish. But they're $2, $4, $6 yarn sale. This yarn was $2 a skein. So I bought 10 skeins and I got 10 skeins for $20. And it's a very affordable sweater for what it is. But this is my first time knitting with the Superwash version of this yarn. And unless I'm able to get it again for $2 a skein, I will likely not be knitting with it again in the future unless it is using up the scraps from this project. Because I don't know if it's the Superwash treatment that this yarn goes through, but it does split quite a bit. I noticed that when working with this, it is a bit splitty. More splitty than the non-Superwash version of Wool of the Andes, which isn't really splitty at all. So I'm thinking it might be something to do with the Superwash treatment process that caused this yarn to be kind of splitty. But either way, I do really like this sweater. I really want to block it out. It is probably the first thing that I'll do once I finish filming this, is block out this sweater. And I think it'll be great. I will show it again next episode just so I can show y'all the blocked out version. But I do really appreciate this sweater and this pattern. This is a pattern that if I were to recommend one sweater pattern to anyone, you know, without knowing anything about you really, I would recommend this pattern because it is just a really flattering fit on just about anyone. It is size inclusive. It has between a extra small to a 5X, I believe. That's what it is. Anyway, it has words. It's size inclusive, but also because of the nature of this stitch pattern, it works well with just about any type of shoulder. So Max is, well, the designer, he's man, so he's got man shoulders, and this pattern has been thoroughly test knit and knit for and by men, so you know that it works out with the typically broader shoulders that men tend to have. I personally have extremely narrow shoulders. Like, my shoulders are so narrow that proportionately sometimes I just tend to look awkward. It's a thing. But anyway, I tend to not avoid raglans, but a lot of the raglans I have knit have kind of fit awkwardly because of how narrow my shoulders are. I do not have this problem with this pattern. Like I said, I think it is the stitch pattern and just the generalized stretch that this sweater has. It just fits the shoulders really well. Like I said, I would recommend it highly. I would recommend this pattern if you want to knit a gift for someone. Single malt. If you want to knit a sweater for yourself, single malt. Single malt. Alright. It is time for my works in progress, one of which I am wearing. This is my Favo sweater by Fibertales, and I have finished the body mostly. I haven't seamed up the sides, but I've finished the knitting of the body. I've finished the neckline that I definitely need to add elastic to. And I've knit this out of Knitpicks Wool of the Andes in the Aurora Heather colorway, and I went on about this last episode, and if I think about it too much, I will get really sad. But this is Knitpicks Aloft in the Labyrinth colorway, and it is discontinued, unfortunately. It's a perfect dark green mohair, and they discontinued it, and I can't find a dark green mohair that is affordable that compares to this, and I'm not happy about it, and I'll stop talking about it before I go on about it forever. But I have finished my body. I've finished the knitting of my body. I wanted to get that done before the end of January. So I have not seamed up the sides. I have blocked this, but I wanted to block this before seaming up the sides, and I want to finish my first sleeve before seaming up the sides, just so I can measure how big I need to make my armhole. I could just seam up the sides according to like the measurement that is given in the pattern, but I have a feeling it will be easier to do so once I've already finished one sleeve, just so in case there are any gauge discrepancies, I can make sure that the join between the sleeve and the body works well. Anyway, I have started my first sleeve. It is knit in this honeycomb brioche that is right here. So I don't know how long the sleeve will take. I feel like I'm about to sneeze. I don't know how long the sleeve will take. I feel like I have sneezed. Anyway, I feel like with the size needles I'm using and the size yarn I'm using, you know, worsted weight held together with the mohair, I feel like that means that this sleeve should go by pretty fast, but it's in this honeycomb brioche pattern, which means that you are essentially working, basically, with a lot of brioche stitches. I haven't really, you know, anyway, a brioche row / round is shorter than a typical knit row or round. You know, whatever I'm trying to say, just know that I have a feeling this sleeve will take longer than I, you know, feel like it should take. So I am working on the sleeve. I would really like to have this finished by the end of next week. So like February 9th is my date. Because I would like to wear this before it gets too unbearably hot. I say that, it's like, oh, I'd like to finish this in February before it gets too hot. You know, the thing with living in Virginia is that the weather doesn't know what it's doing, ever. We went from having 20-degree days to 60-degree days. It's raining, it's snowing, it's thunderstorming. Is that an earthquake? You never know. The thing about Virginia is that you get all 4 seasons. Like, you truly get all 4 seasons. You just don't always get them in the order you're supposed to get them. But anyway, this is quite a bulky and squishy fabric. It is very warm. I need to take this off in a moment before I overheat. But I do have a tendency to overheat. So, you know, I'd like to get this finished sooner rather than later so I can wear it when it is really cold out. Anyway, about the fit of this sweater. So this pattern calls for a butt ton of positive ease. I think it calls for, I want to say 12 to 16 inches. I don't know how much positive ease I have. I'm knitting a size 3 as usual, but I am a little bit worried about the fit because I use forearm crutches, and that means that I can't really have sweater sleeves that, you know, just, I'm trying to look for the words. I can't have a yoke that is too deep, and I can't have a drop shoulder that is too wide, because if anything comes down below the bend of my elbow, it will likely get caught in my forearm crutch, and I will not be able to move properly. It genuinely, like, seriously restricts my movement. And then another thing I'm having to think about is that these sleeves will likely be long. They will likely be long enough to come over my hand a little bit, and I'm hoping that this ribbing on my cuff doesn't block out too much. I'm hoping that it stays tight enough to prevent the sleeve from going down over my hand, because I do use forearm crutches, but I'm currently in the process of getting a manual wheelchair that is custom fit to my body because my forearm crutches are slowly destroying my shoulders and I can't walk properly. So, you know, either way, I'm having to think both about how I need a sweater to fit with my forearm crutches in mind, but also with my wheelchair in mind. So it's one of those things where when you don't know much about it, you don't think that you have to have like specific clothing that works with certain mobility aids. You know, if you need a wheelchair, just wear whatever you want. If you need crutches, just wear whatever you want. But it doesn't work like that. Again, with the forearm crutches, I can't have sleeves that are too bulky. This is a thin enough fabric that it works, but anything bulkier than that, and it's kind of an awkward fit. So it is something that I do have to think about, and it's one of those things where, you know, it's kind of a good thing that I knit my own clothes because, you know, my clothes have to be able to work with my mobility aids, because the universe decided that I would be born with a somewhat silly spine, very silly ligaments, and that I would damage the part of my brain that controls movement, so I walk like I'm drunk all the time. moral of the story, I can't walk properly and that affects the fit of my sweater, so I need to think about that. So I'm really hoping that this will turn out the way I want it to. I would like to finish this, like I said, sooner rather than later. But yes, I will mention that I did block this out, and I kind of underestimated how much length this would get, because this is a non-superwash yarn, so you would think that it shouldn't block out that much lengthwise, but I think because of the stitch patterns, it did block out a decent amount lengthwise. So this pattern is originally supposed to be like cropped. I didn't knit this body longer than it's supposed to be, like longer than, I didn't extend the body length when I knit the body. I knit it to the recommended length. However, due to a combination of factors, one being my abnormally short torso, you know, height-wise, I am mostly leg. There's not a lot of torso here. I have the same length of torso as my sister, who is 7 inches shorter than me. So I have a short torso, but also because of how it blocked out, the body is a good length. It's just a little bit longer than I was expecting it to be. But I'm still really liking it, and I'm really excited for it. And I just, you know, I was kind of worried that with using a yarn this dark, you wouldn't really be able to see the texture, but I think it looks good. It comes through and it looks good. The little braid right here looks very nice, and the baubles are there. I don't know how I feel about the baubles, but that is, you know, something we can discuss another time. You know, my complicated relationship with baubles that isn't actually complicated at all. I just felt like saying it. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. My second whip, which is a half-finished object, is, oh, my yarn was about to fall off of my lap, is the Vanilla is the New Black Socks by Anneh Fletcher. I am knitting this out of Patons Kroy Socks FX in the Midnight Colors colorway, and I'm knitting with the 60 stitch stitch count. So when I am knitting with a true fingering weight, I use a 64 stitch count and 2.25 millimeter needles. When I'm knitting with the Patons Kroy Socks yarn, which is kind of, you know, it's a lot closer to a sport weight, I knit my socks with a 60 stitch circumference and 2.75 millimeter needles. But anyway, the pattern I used is Vanilla is the New Black by Anneh Fletcher, and I really like the heel in this sock. It is probably the best fitting sock heel I have found. I have very deep heels, like the arch, it's just very deep. So I need heels that give me a lot of room. So the typical like fish lips kiss heel that a lot of people knit doesn't often work for me. And I'm not a fan of knitting a heel flap and gusset. So this is kind of like the perfect middle there. It provides a lot of space, and I've actually had a sock that I knit with an alpaca blend sock yarn, and it actually was very loose in the arch because of how the ribbing stretched out, which is a rarity for me. But anyway, I'm knitting this out of Patons Kroy Socks FX in the Midnight Colors, and I really appreciate this yarn colorway. If you look close, I don't know how well it will show on camera, but it has a lot of blue, purple, and a little bit of green in there. And it really reminds me of the coloring on a raven, because if you look at a raven in proper lighting, they're not solid black. There is a lot of tonality in there, and it's, you know, primarily blue, but you also get purple and green tones coming through, and I really appreciate yarns that remind me of that. So I'm knitting the Vanilla is the New Black Socks by Anneh Fletcher. This is actually what I like to call a resurrected whip. So I started this in November, but around that time I was also starting to knit a pair of socks for my grandma for Christmas. So I put these aside, and I just recently picked them up, and I just finished my first sock. So I will be starting my second sock probably today, because I am going to be going to a bowling tournament where I'll be taking care of a spreadsheet, and I'll be getting paid money to do so. However, I'm not always going to be typing on the spreadsheet. I kind of have to wait for the bowlers to finish bowling each game, you know, so they can bring me their score sheets and I can put them in the spreadsheet. I'm going to be doing spreadsheet work, but there will be some time for knitting in there, and the sock feels like it's probably the easiest type of thing to bring. So I will be starting my second sock shortly. So no second sock syndrome here. I don't really do that. I say that, but I do have a singular sock that I haven't knit the companion for sitting in a box over there. And the reason why I haven't knit that second sock is because I started knitting it in, I think it was November of 2023, and my health was really bad. Actually, it might have been October, because I think that was just after I had to go to the ER because I really messed up my knee. You know, like I said, my ligaments don't work properly. But anyway, my health was really bad when I knit the first sock, so I think I've been kind of procrastinating knitting the second sock, kind of a psychological thing going around in here. It's actually one of my goals for 2025 to kind of knit, not kind of knit that second sock, but to actually knit that second sock. I feel like even if they don't fit, it will be like an accomplishment thing. Like even if the fit between one sock and the other is drastically different, because it's been over a year since I last knit on that sock, I feel like, you know, it's a sense of accomplishment. You know, I'll feel accomplished by knitting that second sock. Anyway, sock. I'm holding, what do you think of my fish? You know, I caught this, I'm holding it open by the, you know, it's a fish picture. But anyway, it's all my whips, everything I'm working on. I'm working on a sweater and a sock, which, it's not a lot of things to be working on, so I do plan on casting on new things shortly. And by shortly, I mean either today or tomorrow. This is Barocco Ultra Alpaca Light. My mom got me 8 skeins of it around Easter time of last year. So I have 3 skeins of this purple, which is, colorway please, 4282. Well, that's boring. This red, which is 42183, and 3 skeins of each of these, 2 skeins of this green, which is 4277. You know, wouldn't it be like y'all could at least give it, just, you know, you can call it green or something. You know, it can be something simple. You don't have to do numbers. Like, I'd rather you just say green or purple or red than just to put 4277. It's one of my pet peeves. I do not like number colorway names. But anyway, I have these 3 colors of yarn, and I plan to start a Lakes pullover by Ozetta, striping these 3. And that will be kind of my plain knitting project for reading. But I'm a little bit worried because there's not a lot of contrast between this purple and this red. So I will likely do wider purple and red stripes with a thin green stripe in between each stripe. I haven't entirely decided yet, but I do think that these yarns really need to be a striped sweater, and that is going to happen. I'm going to wind up these yarns, like I said, today or tomorrow, because I really want to start this project, and I've been thinking about this for a while, thinking about what these yarns want to be, what they need to be, what they should be. And it's telling me that, you know, it has to be a striped drop shoulder sweater. It's just calling me. But it's probably going to be my next cast on. And then I have 2 spare skeins from my single malt sweater, and I want to use up this yarn because I don't really have a lot of uses for it. I'm not going to buy more of this Superwash base to knit another sweater in which I use these scraps. So I plan on knitting a hat, and I plan on doing so very soon. It's going to be another kind of self-drafted 1x1 knit beanie that should hopefully use up most of my leftover yarn in this Indigo Heather colorway. I don't know if I'm going to cast it on within this next week or if I'm going to wait until I have finished my second sock. We'll see. We'll see where the yarn takes me. And then this yarn is for a project that I really want to start soon. I've been waiting to start this project for a while. The reason I've been waiting is because I plan to use this yarn that has pretty much all the same colors that my wheelchair will have to knit a sweater that I can wear to go pick up my wheelchair in. Because I have this thing where pretty much the only time I really leave the house, I did mention I'm going to a bowling tournament, but that's once a month. A majority of the time when I leave the house, I'm going to medical appointments, and sometimes it kind of feels like, you know, what's the point of, you know, putting on proper clothes? But then again, I don't really leave the house for anything other than medical appointments. So I have this thing where I wear my sweaters to I wear my sweaters to medical appointments, and for major medical appointments, I like to wear a new sweater. So I'm hoping to wear a sweater knit out of this yarn to pick up my wheelchair. And the reason I am waiting is because my wheelchair is not yet in manufacturing. We've had a lot of problem with securing the financial capabilities to make this wheelchair, problems with insurance. So we're hoping that the manufacturing process on my wheelchair can start this week. And once I get confirmation that they have started with my wheelchair, I will start knitting this sweater. And I'm hoping that by the time they finish manufacturing my wheelchair that it won't be too hot to wear this, because I plan on knitting the Rocket Tee by Tanis Labelli, but I plan on doing so, modifying the pattern to be knit with long sleeves. I have another Rocket Tee that I wear quite a bit, but I have a feeling that it will be kind of similar to this sweater, and I have a feeling I'll get a lot of wear out of it, knit to have long sleeves. But it'll take about 2 months for them to make my wheelchair. The estimated time is 2 to 8 weeks, and it will likely be on the longer end of that because the frame of my wheelchair is going to be 100% custom made. They will literally start with this long tube of material, and they will bend it to make my frame entirely custom fit. So that being said, I will be starting this once my wheelchair is put into manufacturing, and I hope to wear it when I pick up my wheelchair. My wheelchair, the frame of it will be green. There will be parts of it that are anodized to be purple, and then the wheel, like the actual tires, are going to be a light gray because they're airless pneumatic tires. I don't have to worry about pumping up my tires. And then there are other parts which will be black, and there's some black in this yarn. And the Rocket Tee uses a fingering weight yarn striped with a lace weight mohair. So this is my fingering weight yarn. I got it again at the Shenandoah Valley Fiber Festival. It doesn't really have a name or a colorway. It's from Spinaway Farm, but it is just a hand-dyed 50% merino, 30% nylon, and 20% angora. And my mohair is just going to be a plain black mohair. But I've been going through the process of trying to get this wheelchair for a long time, and I want to celebrate it by having a new sweater to wear when I pick it up. So, yeah, I'm gonna end my wheelchair ramblings here because, again, I could go on for ages. It's been a long process, but I would like to get this sweater started this week to celebrate my wheelchair finally making it to the manufacturing part of the process, because it's been 6 months since I was evaluated and measured. So it's been a long ride. And I want it to be done, and I want to knit this sweater to kind of commemorate that, if that makes sense. Anyway, that is all of the knitting that I have for now. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you very much. If you have been knitting or crocheting something, please let me know what you are working on. I'm very interested in that. Now, I should probably ask y'all what you're working on at the beginning of the episode, so even if you don't make it to the end, I can still hear about what y'all are working on. I'll try and do that next episode. Anyway, if you don't want to find me on other social medias after sitting through however long this video is, I don't know, because I record it in smaller clips, so it's easier to edit. All of my other social medias are in my link tree in the description. I will have my Ravelry, Instagram, TikTok that is back, but also kind of not. because you can't download it from the App Store, and there's just been an extension placed on it for 75 days. We still don't know what's going on there. I'm also on Tumblr. I think that's about it. Ravelry, Instagram, TikTok, and Tumblr. Yeah, that's about it. You can find me other places. So thank you very much for watching if you made it to the end of this video. Pearl, my cat, didn't really make any physical appearances. I think she is currently sleeping under a table out there. Yeah, I think I can see her. But she has not made any appearances, so at the end of this video, I will put... My shoulder just cracked again. I'd really appreciate it if you would stop doing that. Anyway, insert Pearl clip here so y'all can see Pearl, because y'all need to see Pearl, because I love Pearl and you should love Pearl. She's wonderful. It's Pearl time.